Okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
Small group is.
Yeah, it is a small group. Maybe we solved all the problems last week.
Yeah.
They all said 2 in a row.
Yeah.
These workshops are paying off.
They don't realize that you can change your mind.
Would you?
First thing on the agenda First is you to have to change make the up the agenda.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call this regular meeting, the February meeting of the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District Board of Commissioners to order. It is Monday, February the 28th. It is now 9 o'clock exactly. Can we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Commissioner Surratt, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Chairwoman Childers,
Here.
Vice Chair Dyer,
Here.
Secretary Surratt here, Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Stamps.
He's here.
I declare a quorum. We have all commissioners in attendance. You have received the tentative agenda for today. Have you had a chance? I hope you've had a chance to look it over and determine if there are any items that you want to add or delete. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Brown has moved to approve the agenda. Commissioner Dyer has seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The approval of minutes. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Surratt.
Yes, we have one correction on the minutes from January 17. Snuck by a couple of us. Under old business, recreation center damage and options, the actual estimate provided by Broadway Contracting was $700,000 as opposed to $165,000. And we will make those corrections before filing the final draft.
And so with any other corrections that you noted?
I wish we could keep the lower amount, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Would you like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Surratt has made a motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Brown has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any ceremonial items that we're aware of? Don't think so. Announcements. Public comment? Thank you. Reports. Any reports, or is it all included in our business items? Danny?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, let's move along to new business. Discuss,
Skipping old business.
well, there's nothing there.
Oh, okay.
Maybe with reports, we should go back a little bit, since, thank you, Corporal Engel came in. Would you like to report about this? We just got to your section. We're moving
Just
fast this morning.
I was like, 9:03, how?
Yeah, we're not. We got this down.
All righty. I got January 2022 stats, first one of the year. We had a total of 124 calls for service, 10 traffic stops, 3 citations and 7 warnings. We had 3 alarm calls, 1 agency assist, 4 animal calls, 2 citizen assist, 10 civils, 2 civil process. We had 6 domestics, 31 ex-patrols, 18 follow-ups, 2 frauds, 2 harassments, 2 motorist assist, 2 noise complaints, 1 stolen vehicle, which was recovered shortly after, 2 suicidal person calls, 16 suspicious vehicle or suspicious person, 1 threats. We had 2 unattended vehicles, 3 welfare checks, 3 911 open lines, and 1 misdemeanor arrest. It was an easy month.
Question, on alarm calls, are they businesses like a park, or are they homes that?
Half and half. Like, I think one was Dollar General, and then the other 2 were residential.
If they're after hours, like at midnight, do you send a deputy there? Yeah.
Yeah, we always, and the only time we don't have a deputy go out is if the alarm company calls back.
Okay.
The alarm company calls back and says that, hey, it's a false alarm, talk to the homeowner. And sometimes it'll be middle of the night and they press in the wrong code. Or they give, if the alarm company calls, the alarm company is going to require a passcode.
Okay.
So it's going to be watermelon or whatever word they choose.
Okay.
And if it says something wrong, I know another one was over here off of Lakeside. It's the people live up in Minnesota, and it was their family's house, and they're remodeling it, and so the construction crew doesn't put in the right passcode when they go in.
Okay.
And then the homeowner, everything is still under the mother's name, who is deceased, and the son, I've gotten his phone number from the neighbor, but he won't answer my phone calls because he thinks I'm spam. I've even tried texting him. He's like, no sheriff deputy's gonna text me. I'm like, well, you're not answering your voicemail. So like, I'm just trying to let you know that your alarms are going off.
Right.
And I said, so I'm gonna call ADT and let them know that you don't believe us, so. Yeah.
I think Jeff Foxworthy has a,
Exactly, yeah.
There's a whole routine about that?
Just trying to help you out, sir.
Aaron, I have another question for you on the 2 storms that have happened over the last couple of weeks. I think on one of them, on Holiday Island Drive, we had a really bad situation there up at Fire Station 1. And I think the 911 was called because we had about 6 cars in the ditch and so forth. As far as traffic control, is that up to the fire department or our employees? Or we had to close that. We took cones from the fire department, and I took it upon myself to direct people through the Grace Church so they wouldn't go down there with the other 6, 8 cars. When we called, they said, no, we can't, we're too busy. We've got people all over the county in trouble. What's the status on something
So
like
when
that?
it comes to an accident scene, so an accident scene itself is technically fire department.
Okay,
So anytime an accident happens, the wreck, the traffic control, the patient, that is all fire department.
okay,
And then once all that technically is clear, then we come in and work the accident and so forth. Now, that being said, we all work together. So it's not like we're not gonna do our job until they do theirs. As far as sheriff's office goes, whenever it's nasty weather like this, we do not respond unless it's life emergency. The fire department themselves, every fire department out here, they're more qualified, I don't say more qualified, they've got better equipment. Their vehicles have chains. They've got rappelling equipment, they've got everything that if they happen to slide down a hill,
right,
then they can get back up.
okay.
I've got new tires on my Tahoe, but they're a pursuit tire. Yeah, it's 4-wheel drive, but you think it's gonna do well? I mean, no. And so essentially, unless it's a life or death emergency, we just stay central, and we just wait for that. And then we pretty much let the fire department go out and handle it. And if it's something they need to report, then we can either A, have them call in, give us all the information, and then we can file it once everything clears out. Because like a lot of times tow trucks aren't gonna go out there because they're not gonna risk.
Okay. And as far as blocking the road with cones and so forth, that should be up to the fire chief or the road manager.
Correct. And anybody, like, I know whenever February of last year, when all that happened, me and Lawrence met down at the road department, and I just started piling signs in my Tahoe in the back of his truck, and we started setting them up, just because we needed it done. We needed state line shut down over there by Summit. So it's kind of, and if something does get shut down, it's always just best just to call the sheriff's office, just call dispatch, say, hey, we're shutting this down. You don't need our permission to shut it down. This is all a city street. If it's a state highway, obviously state has to be notified and authorize it, but they're not going to tell us no. But anything inside here, you don't need anybody's permission but whoever the head honchos are.
Okay. The record service is only one in Eureka. They were 4 hours behind.
Yeah,
And stuff.
Yeah, J&J, and even to go off of not this one we just had, but last time, 2 weeks ago, we had, it wasn't in Holiday Island, but in the county, it was in the Eureka district, but we had 2 unintended deaths. And the coroner literally told them, shut the door and open the windows. You know, like, we can't get out there. And so, like, you know, they're calling back 5, 6 hours later, like, hey, you know, like, he's still here, like, are you guys coming? And, you know, obviously it's not us, and it was a hospital situation, we're Circle Light and all that, but the coroner can't get out there. And I mean, nobody can get down some of these roads that they're just nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So appreciate it.
Other questions for Corporal Engel? Thanks for that explanation. For the lay public, that does help to know whose responsibility fire versus law enforcement is. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And thanks for all you do for Holiday Island. We appreciate it.
And then Lawrence, like what we had talked, or Lawrence, Danny, what we talked about on the building up there, April 1st is what we're looking at. The new owners are probably gonna take over, so.
Okay.
Maybe we can talk about that after.
Yes.
The sheriff's fully aware, he knows everything, so he said he's gotta present it to the quorum court today as well to get their part done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Let's move, we did not have any old business, so let's move into new business. Discuss and allocate budget for the rec center project. Danny has provided some information to us in email form, but I'd like for him to go over it for the public today.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I sent this email on February the 22nd, and I made a copy of that in case you didn't recall the email or haven't seen it. But I kind of laid out some numbers here to give you an idea of where we're at with our reserves. As the email states, the 2022 budget includes $1.8 million for salaries and about $1.8 million for operations and maintenance, for a total of $3.7 million. And our CD balance is $1.54 million, and that's about 41% of our operating budget for 2022. So 41% reserves. We could take, so that we have a little slack there, that the lower threshold for our reserves is 35%. We could potentially use some of those funds from the CDs to fund the recreation center. $240,000 to be exact is what would be available to take from the CDs, but keep us above the required threshold. So that's what we have available, and as you may recall, when we formulated the 2022 budget, we left $154,000 in there for the recreation center.
Yes.
So that, along with the $240,000, now my recommendation would be that we not spend that amount from the CDs, because that puts us right at 35%. And you know, what my recommendation would be to spend about half of that, about $120,000. That would put our reserves at 38%. And then we do have some money in the money market account as well. But that's typically not to be used as reserves to fund a capital project.
So we left $154,000 unspent in the budget with the understanding that that would be part of the money that was used to repair the rec center. We also had allocated $150,000 for
The pond
the
rehab.
pond rehab that we're seriously considering not doing that, but doing it in-house, which would save another $150,000. And then if we take, you know, that would give us a total of what, $304,000, and we could add in a little bit from reserves for whatever is needed.
Correct.
So essentially, that's our budget at this time.
As I've thought about this, my recommendation to the board would be that we allocate $350,000 to this project. That would keep our reserves at somewhere around 39%.
Yeah.
I think that's a good target, and it also gives us a little slack there because seems like on every project, there's gonna be overruns. And especially when you get into the peripheral things that we discussed in here about landscaping and security system and those types of things. I think 350,000 is a good target for us.
Any comments?
Anytime that you do any kind of remodeling, you're gonna have overruns because they just don't know what's in there. So that's very common.
Yes.
So I guess the elephant in the room at this point then would be, what can we do for $350,000?
Right. And we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Phyllis, any comments on the
I have one.
budget?
Sure. What Commissioner Stamp said last week, if you were looking for a pickup truck and the dealer knows that you have $65,000 to pay for a pickup truck, guess what the price tag is going to be on that pickup? 65 grand. So it's now in the public record that we have $350,000 to spend on remodeling or demolition and rebuild of the rec center. Guess what my bid is going to be?
Well, but people are going to be bidding against you, we hope. Do we have any more comments about the budget, the suggested budget?
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay,
I-
then,
I have,
so,
Commissioner, Chair, I have a question on a couple of projects that were not done, and there's supposed to be money that we could put into this $350,000. One is, and we talked a little bit about it at the workshop, one was the building that would house salt or chat or sand, and it was $75,000, I think, last year, and we didn't have any bids on it. And my question is about that is, with the last 3 weeks' storms, is there anything that would mitigate some of the problems that we had distributing chat, sand, or salt, or whatever, to melt ice and make roads more passable, that building was proposed in the first place? The second comment about available monies is, if we were not going to get the company out of Dallas, Texas, that John Prang wanted to do the hole 14 water problem and the pond on 12, is that going to be done at no cost by our people? If it was $150,000 now, I know a lot of those costs were moving their equipment up 6 hours away to Arkansas. But are we saying that if we didn't spend it on that company, that Kyler and Kenny's crew could do that for no dollars?
That's what we
Probably have some
were
experience.
discussing the other day, I believe, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, but I wouldn't say no dollars. I would say at a minimal cost, because we are going to have to, you'd have to be out there to look at this as I explain it for it to make sense probably, but what they would like to do is when they restack those rocks, they want to have about a 3-foot border around it that will be filled with like river rock, so that the water that's flowing in, coming down the fairway, can hit that river rock and seep down. And as they mow around that pond, it gives them a border that they can mow around. Part of what's pushing those big stones inward are the mowers getting right up at the edge of it. And when we've had a rain and that ground is soft, those mowers sink down and they push those rocks inward towards the pond. So they're going to create a ditch, if you will, a couple of feet deep, and fill that with gravel, and hopefully stabilize those rocks that way. So there will be some expense in doing that, but it wouldn't be anywhere near $150,000. We have the know-how to do it. We have the heavy equipment to move those stones.
How about 14 then? That seems like a little more onerous.
Well, Tyler believes right now there's no emergency to do anything with 14.
14 is just there. That number 12, the reason that pond is there, it was always wet. When we built the pond way back in the day, And the reason being is so it would flow through and it eventually gets to 14. It comes off the roads and all that kind of stuff and it flows over there. And we did that in-house way back, like, again, in the day. And, but you're right, put a French drain around there in order to keep that water from pushing and the weight of everything, pushing those rocks in,
Yes,
will
sir.
do the job. It will. That's a good plan.
And when you look at the need to fix the rec center versus the need to do anything with the pond on 14,
Yeah.
obviously we need to save the money that we'd allocated for those pond repairs and reallocate that onto the rec center.
Yeah, what about the building? First, we needed it, now all of a sudden we don't need it, and the second year we don't need it. Why did it ever come up? I know you weren't here, Danny, at the time, but it's a little odd that we really needed this building with a cover over it to keep product from freezing, but we really don't need it anymore. I don't get it.
What the problem is number one, when you go out there to get the material to load it, it's frozen.
Right.
And you gotta take a backhoe and beat the tar out of it and bust it loose, and then you can put it in the machine. And then what happens is the sand and stuff will be in clumps. Well, that auger doesn't like clumps, and it will clog it up, and it takes a lot of work and effort to do it. But, you know, it's not like we got 120 miles of roads, but it's not all of them that's gonna be treated with that material.
But
And
wouldn't a cover over it
a
prevent?
cover over it would prevent it. You may still get some because you've always got something blowing,
Right,
but it would help it a great deal. If you look, all the state, they've got at intersections in bad locations, they've got a building there that's got a cover over it. It's usually a concrete block building with a cover over it,
right.
and that they keep material in so that it's close by it whenever they have to have it. But, you know, I think that Kenny made the statement the other day, he said it, or earlier when we were doing things, that, yeah, it's a pain to have to go out there and to break everything up to get it loaded and all that kind of stuff, but it's not that big, because we've had pretty decent winters up until last week.
Yeah.
I don't think, Ken, that anybody said they don't need it. It just, is it a priority over
Yes,
other
I
projects?
think that's the case.
Yeah.
And, you know, I never heard from the roads department that they were hampered in any way, even in these extreme storms. They could get product and you know, they didn't run out of Chad or anything.
What I remember, and you may not have been on the board at that point, but when Kenny and Lawrence Blood brought up that sometimes the employees had to go up there with pickaxes
Oh,
in the
yeah.
back of the truck. I mean, you can go in with a front end loader and try to jar it loose and so forth, but they had guys up there with bamming it with pickaxes. So
Yep,
I
that's
know
close.
we're gonna have more winters like this, you know.
Oh, I know.
Not in
Yeah,
Miami
yeah.
or Phoenix.
Well, and some of it could be mitigated too, very inexpensively by tarping the storage area, like, you know, in the Midwest where we harvest large
Yeah.
amounts of grain.
Sure.
We store corn outside
Yeah.
and cover it with tarps and, you know, there's
Yeah.
things that can be done in it. So my point was though, I don't think it's that they don't need it.
Yeah.
It's just how important it is to.
It's not a priority.
Yeah, that's it. It's always a matter of setting the priorities. Yeah.
I'm all for that, and I'm all for, I mean, we've got to fix the rec center, but we don't have to fix it for $700,000. But Danny, your amount there that you've got looks pretty reasonable, and I think if we really went after contractors, not just in, maybe even farther away, it may raise the price because they have to keep crews here,
Look
but
at it.
I think, in bottom line, we might be able to get a good price out of it by going out further and contacting more contractors. It may not be possible, but.
Yeah, well, let's move on to the next item, which is to discuss the creation of scope of work for the rec center. And I asked Danny to put this on the agenda because we've had the opportunity to listen to Mr. Rolfe, and you know, his background in construction and everything. The real issue for all of us, I think, sitting on this board is you can't weigh the cost of putting a new building versus the cost of repairing the old building until you know what it's going to cost to repair the old building. So I think that as a board, we should authorize Danny to work together with whoever he thinks is appropriate to develop this scope of work document, put it out there, advertise for bids, and let's see what comes in. If we get bids, good, then we have an idea of what number that they're looking at. And if we don't get bids, then we know that's not an option. The one thing is, I am not at all in favor of this idea of the cost plus so much percentage, because to me, that's like an open checkbook where we don't know how much it's going to cost us. But that was my thought, was to get off a dead center, we've got to figure out how much it's going to cost to actually repair it.
Yep.
And so he's the one that said that's the direction to go, so let's use his experience and expertise and authorize Danny to establish that document and to advertise for bids and see what happens.
Well, before you bake the cake, you gotta have a recipe.
Right.
And I think we're gonna have what we want. And say, okay, this is what we want. We want it to be, we don't want a tool shed, we want this.
Right.
And this is what we use it for and what it should be.
Right.
And I think that's from an architect.
Right,
If you get a
and
chance to talk to Mr. Berry.
Yeah.
We
And
have exchanged phone calls, but
Oh.
I will talk to him today,
Yeah.
sure.
And really, Larry, I think there, number 3 goes hand in glove with the scope of work.
Yes,
And
indeed.
also asking him to go ahead and hire an architect, and let's work together to get this going. Yes, ma'am?
I think we are ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the current building worth saving? And you spoke to several contractors who felt, and granted, they want to put up a new building, and I understand, and we can work from that premise. But we're never going to get anything done getting somebody else's opinion. I think as a board, we have an obligation to the residents to get this thing going.
Yeah.
And the best way to get it going is to downsize and get a plan, but make a decision to tear down the building and fill in the front.
Well,
I mean, that would be my...
if it was my building, that's what I would do. But I think that's where we've got to, if we develop a scope of work, if we put it out for bids, have an architect design what we want that to look like, and the bids come back, and for one thing, are they gonna bid? Because every contractor Danny talked to said they wouldn't
That's
touch
my
it.
point.
Well, I wanna be able
That's my
to say
point.
to people, nobody would touch it.
Do you have those answers in writing?
Well, we'll have it in bid format. I mean, if they don't bid, then we'll know, they don't wanna touch it. And then what we're gonna have to look at is going to somewhere, and I'm just gonna use the people in Springdale, simply because they are the ones that made a presentation. We're gonna have to go to them and say, we need a building that serves this purpose and scale it back to what we can afford. Because we know what our budget is. So, and feel free to tell me that I'm wrong in how I'm looking at this, but I just think in order to say to the community that we looked at all aspects, we've got to actually go out for bid, for repair, and see if we get anything. I don't think we will, personally. And it's gonna waste us another month of time.
That's.
But, yeah, but you know what? They're gonna constantly complain
Well,
that we could have saved that building.
Let's
Well-
understand that you're never gonna make everyone happy.
That's true, that is true.
First of all, I have turned the committees loose on projects before. And I equated to when I was in Hot Springs to a thoroughbred. We were gonna get us a thoroughbred, and we did it by committee, and we got a camel.
Yes.
And so therefore, they'll be wanting to put a bowling alley in one end of it. They'll be wanting to put a
And that's why
pool
we
hall
like
in the other end, and no bar.
Yeah, yeah.
well, you can't have a pool all without a bar. So, I think what we need to do is get the recipe from somebody. Number one, what do we want?
Yeah.
What do we have to have? And get with somebody and say, architect person, and say, okay, what parts of these walls do you think are barren walls in this building? Do we need to tear the building down in order to accomplish what we want to do? And you gotta have the recipe or they won't, you know,
Yeah,
if you send the guy out there and say, we need a rec center.
yeah.
To your point, Mr. Steps, I'm not convinced that we can arrive at a scope of work until we have an architect
I
and
can't either.
some drawings. Then we can see what we want to achieve, and then from that, develop a scope of work.
Right.
Whether it's rehabbing the building to look like something new and to be structurally sound. But I think we might need the design work on the front end and then the scope of work.
Most
And the thing
definitely.
of it is, the design work, because my assumption, when I'm talking about committee, is probably Danny and Janice knows the function of the building and how the building should function, as well as the architect. The design work, even if people don't bid to repair it, will help us in determining what we're gonna build new, if we tear it down. So, it's not gonna go for naught.
It'd be fine if you could just go in there and knock the walls out, take the floor up, and put some compactable material in there, put your plumbing in, and then pour a slab on it. But is the roof gonna cave in? How much of that is barren walls?
Yeah.
That's way above my capacity.
That's where we end up with one problem leading to another, with trying to rehab a 50-year-old building that's poorly constructed to begin with.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I feel like we have to face a reality that it's probably not worth saving. That's my opinion.
Well, I always try to look at, as a representative of the community, I try to look at expenditures as how would Bob spend Bob's money. And I'm not sure Bob, even though it is a 50-year-old building, would just, I'll tell you, if I try to sell my wife on the need for a new television, she makes me convince her what's wrong with the old one, I want to hear why we can't, I don't think the majority of people in Holiday Island really want a whole new fancy facility.
No.
I think most people of Holiday Island would be very happy if the current facility were rehabbed to the point that it's safe and functional.
Functional.
And
It doesn't need
I would guess
a complete facelift or,
I would guess there are every bit as many people who don't care what they walk into. And if it's not safe,
Yeah.
get rid of it. As long as they have a swimming pool and tennis courts and pickleball and as long as the amenities are there, how they arrive at that destination is not important to them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And it's a single-purpose building. Not like it has meeting rooms in it or a pool hall or a bowling alley or anything else, It's a single purpose where, people check in and
Go do their thing.
appropriate fees are collected and then they disperse.
Use the bathroom, buy a hot dog.
Yeah, and we could do that out of the back of the trailer for crying out loud.
The building has surpassed its usefulness. Number one, it was the community center at one time. Well, it can't be the community center now. All the meetings and all that kind of stuff were held there.
Sure.
But now we've got a clubhouse. We have a facility that's useful. That one's not. It's become, it's not what it was designed for, what it was designed for is not practical today.
Are you saying it's an albatross?
It is.
Amen.
It's a millstone.
It really is a millstone at this point in time. You're exactly right.
And The only last thing I'd like to say, Suzanne, is when we had the workshop, we talked about, there's about $50,000 worth of new roof, metal roofing over there. And I don't say save the building because we spent that kind of money, but we didn't know about the underneath problems. But we still haven't determined, no one's determined that there's mold in the walls, that the walls are unusable. No one's done that. And I was talking to one contractor, said you can do that by going down from the top, and you guys that are contractors or know something about building would, comment on this, but it's like going in the sewer pipe that we did, Janice, over there in your barn, outside the barn. You've got a scope and a light, and you go through and you see what the problems are. And if the pipe is intact, you're okay. If it's all broken down, you've got to dig up and build new. Same thing with the walls. If there were mold in all those walls, we wouldn't have to smash the wallboard down to see it doesn't. We could get in from the top. There's other ways to find this out. So, but I think to tear it down, I'm not so sure the Broadway construction guys were so far off. We could make that metal building about half the size it was. But I think what you said is get Danny and Janice together with a scope of work. But you have to find, she said, well, maybe we don't need this little office in the back. Maybe we could have it here, and we need a break room. And she had some good ideas last week, and I know you do, about what we really need in there, and does it need a new building to accommodate those needs. And I said it's a checkout place for golfers and a check-in place for swimmers. The pickleballers don't need to go in there unless we keep track of it to see how much the facilities are used. And that's why we put in the money to surface the pickleball. Tennis, hardly any tennis used anymore. But that's all it is. Check in, sign your name, you're a property owner, and you go out.
Well, that building is like anything else. It's kind of the command center for the rec center area.
Yeah. Right.
And you need to have visibility. Like in a golf course, you want to see who's on number 1 tee box. You want to see who's on number 9 tee box. You want to have visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got pickleball, you've got the courts down there, the tennis courts and all that facility. You need to have visibility to that. And most definitely to all the swimming pools and stuff. So it's kind of like building a glass house. And don't make anybody mad, they'll throw rocks at you. But that's the concept that, because we don't need a fireplace for a meeting room. We don't need what it was designed for. That's obsolete.
Yeah.
So,
And there is no visibility out front right now.
but the architect, if we tell him what we need, they've got imagination. Let's let them use it.
I think, we don't need to unnecessarily slow this project by only dealing with it monthly.
Yeah.
If Danny can kick this into hyperdrive as far as the
Yes.
scope of work and
Yes.
move on here,
Yes.
Yeah, we've got to get
We could-
moving on it.
yeah, we need to,
Something has to be done,
We need
because
to-
pool season.
we need to get to the point where we can make that final
And
decision.
use the
To
swimming.
bring the wrecking ball or
Yeah.
to bring carpenters in and start doing serious work, so.
So I'm assuming
Janet.
somebody's sitting at,
I just have a question or a statement, is that what I'd like to find out about that building is, can we save the women's and men's shower restroom areas? Because whatever's on a slab, obviously is savable. But where do they get their water from? Where do they get their electricity from? Is it somewhere over here that has to be?
That could be done though for minimal money in the scope of the overall project, I think.
And so whatever's on a
Utilities.
slab, we could probably save that, it could sit separate. Now you take down the rest of it, and I've got a little drawing here that I made up. So and I'm looking at a very small building, not a big building in the front, smaller than what's there, and an open space.
Yeah.
So you gotta think in terms of also, there's so many new buildings going up here, so much new housing coming up. People don't wanna walk into 1970 anymore, they wanna walk into the current era. And yes, we've tried to save a lot of stuff, but this is an important part. The swimming pools, We've kept the swimming pools up really nice so people enjoy them. You're gonna be working around building this to accommodate the swimming pools, not the small one this year, but the big one hopefully will be open, but it all depends. So I'm, not that I want to spend everybody's money, but I think that building that's there, if you try to do something with it, it's too big. It's like somebody said, an albatross that is sitting there, now you're gonna try to rearrange everything. The plumbing, the electricity, electricians kind of like throw their hands up in the air, so they don't even know where something's coming from if they have to do work there. So this is what I'm getting at, it's not a perfect building, and if we tried to save it and tear up floors and put I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think as a property owner, that's my building too, so I would rather see something more functional go in and easy and clean and crisp and less maintenance and, go from there. That's
Well, let's-
my opinion.
Now that we've had a chance to bat this all around, would somebody like to make a motion to
I
go
will make a-
forward to this?
I will make a motion that Danny look into hiring an architect
Okay,
for advice on the remodel or the demise of the rec center building.
I second it.
okay. All right.
Repeat that for me. You said demise of the rec center.
What to do with it?
Yeah,
Can we-
basically,
Can you include in your motion, sir, that Danny create a scope of work document
That's
based on the conversation with the architect?
with the architect, of course. That's,
And may I add something to that, also to put that out and solicit bids?
yes.
Yep.
after
After we
I
arrive.
think we need to look at what the architect comes back with,
Sure.
and so that everybody's in agreement with that, then go out for bid.
The seconder agrees with the changes.
Okay, let me restate, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. Commissioner Stamps has made a motion to hire an architect to assist in determining, whether the demise or the reconstruction of the rec center and establish a scope of work that can be used for soliciting bids if it's determined that that's the way to go forward. Is that correct?
That's close enough.
Okay,
Right.
Commissioner Brown
Yeah.
has seconded the motion. Perhaps we should do a roll call on this.
Sure. Commissioner Childers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Stamps.
Yeah,
Surratt says yes.
Very good. All right. Do you have you know what to do now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
I
good.
will take the ball and run. with it.
Good, thank you. Thank you. All right, and thank you for your comments this morning, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
And madam. And you know what, Phyllis? I tend to look this way, so don't think I'm ignoring
Oh,
you.
you turned your back on me every night.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. All right, let's move to item 4, which is consideration and action to amend the personnel policies. This we discussed last week. It was moving all of the current amount of time off that we have available for our employees to basically a bucket called paid time off, and that they would be able to use after consultation with their supervisor in order to manage sick leave and bereavement leave and personal leave and all of the other million leaves that you can come up with. It's just paid time off. Plus we are adding the standard federal holiday and state holiday of Martin Luther King to the holidays for employees.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make that motion, but first I want to ask Danny a question before I do, or maybe we can have some discussion. Since you've been here, Danny, have you noticed that every place I've worked, we've always had not always, but we've had personnel committees and we've updated the personnel book, policy book, depending on maybe Martin Luther King's birthday or 3% raise or we want more sick leave or whatever it might be. And the director of the project or the city manager or whatever superintendent of schools gets that group together maybe 2 or 3 times a year. After you've looked at that and your employees here in the office, do you see the need for something to would be done such as that? In other words, look at our whole policy book. And are there changes that need to be done, to it?
Yes, I suspect that there are other changes that need to be done. As she mentioned, this is chapter 3. I mean, that was one of the first things that kind of jumped out at me. And there were not a lot of changes. There is a reference in there to a flexible spending account for medical costs. We don't offer that, so we've taken that out. We've added this holiday. And then as she described, roll this into PTO. That was, I think, a necessary change. There are other chapters in there that need to be reviewed, and so we'll be looking at those.
I think this was done a little over a year ago, Kim. Lawrence Blood, when he was still here, told me that there was like a committee of the office staff here that went through that. But that is a very good practice to periodically undertake.
Sure, I remember that, I think, but I would encourage us to do it, on a regular basis, maybe once a year, look at it, get 2, 3, 4 people together for a couple hours and, and see what needs to be done. It's sort of like mission statements. If you don't need to change the mission statement, don't waste the time to get people together on it. I've been through a lot of those, but personnel policies, I think the employees are more willing, I think, to feel that you have them a value if you look at their, what they're doing, what they're paid, and time off and so forth, insurance.
Okay.
I actually think perhaps I was coming from a place of very low expectations. I was so pleased to find out they had a policy manual for an organization that only has 50 people. I wasn't even sure it existed. And after seeing it, and I'm sure a lot of it probably came from the municipal league, and then they adapted it from that point on. What I've seen so far, I thought looked quite proper.
Good.
So, yeah.
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes, we need a motion on this.
I move that we accept the recommendations on HICID policy under Chapter 3 Employee Benefits and convert to PTO
Okay.
and add the holiday.
I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Surratt, seconded by Commissioner Dyer, to amend the HICID personnel policy, moving all time off to a paid time off and including the Martin Luther King holiday. So we have a motion on the table.
One comment,
Yes.
just for anybody that might be listening in from Zoom land. Correct me if I'm wrong, other than the addition of the Martin Luther King holiday, this change does not add or subtract any paid time off that employees currently get. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. All right, the next one was kind of an administrative change for us to look at changing the code of regulations on how the meetings were structured. We talked a little bit about that. It's really changing it to reflect the fact that we want to do the work session on the 3rd Monday and the actual meeting on the 4th Monday, and it gives the employees in the office, it works better for their schedule too. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll move to that, make that effective.
I will second.
Okay, Commissioner Brown has made a motion. Commissioner Stamps has seconded a motion to amend the Code of Regulations as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
So will that be effective next month?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's really kind of, there's wonderful wording in there that says we can meet whenever we feel like it, but it kind of makes the wording a little clearer as far as what we're doing. All right, our year-end financial report. Mr. Presley, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, can you pull up the other document, please? Okay, and can you expand that to the little plus sign at the top?
You having problems?
There you go, right there. Hit that about, yeah, okay. I guess everyone can see that. So this was very interesting to me. I mean, having been here 7 months or so now, to be able to see the year-end financials and see how we finished out the year at 21. The kind of a reddish-brown color are the actuals, and the blue is what was budgeted. And these are the expenditures for every department. So you can see that we were under in every department, way under on the roads department, which is the first column to the left. And that is because of a road project that we had budgeted that did not occur in 21. It was postponed until hopefully 2022. That project will kick off. And then I want to point out a couple of anomalies in there. One is fire. In the fire department, due to safety reasons and just coverage in Holiday Island, the previous district manager authorized the fire chief to hire an additional person, and that person was not in the budget. So you can see that the actuals were above what was budgeted. And there's also some equipment repair costs in there as well. We have an aging fleet in the fire department, and we have replaced lots of parts on those fire trucks to keep them running. And just a set of tires.
Very expensive tires. I signed a check that just kind of.
Several $1,000s. But I know that obviously that coverage from the fire department is important, and we want our firefighters to have good equipment that's well maintained. So we've spent, now some of those expenditures there that you see in the fire department, they were not budgeted, but we did have some money that's, I can't remember the name of the fund, but it's a reserve fund.
833.
833 fund, and that state funds that's set aside, and we were able to draw from that to do some repairs on the fire equipment. And then non-departmental was slightly over, as you can see.
You might want to explain what that is, because I find that title on that category is confusing for the public.
It is. There are some expenses that HICID incurs that are not specific to any one department. So in non-departmental, that is where the revenue is shown for the AOBs. When people pay their assessment of benefits, that money goes into non-departmental. And then things that, I'm trying to think of an example, insurance
Insurance,
for all of our employees.
liability.
And liability insurance for all of the property throughout Holiday Island. I mean, those are things that are not unique to any specific department. So they're in non-departmental. So that's what that is. The campground on the end, I mean, you can barely see it because the campground is, somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000. But although you can't see it on this chart, they way overperformed. Our campground manager, Danny, what's Danny's last name? Albright. Has done a really good job in marketing our campground and building those relationships with the guests there, and people tend to come back. And there's been times he's had a waiting list now, and that's good because it was not that way in years past. Our campground, as you know, it's kind of obscure. It's tucked away back there. You have to know how to get there. But Danny Albright's done a great job marketing that and bringing people back. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is our revenue, and this excludes the AOB revenue. And the reason I did that is because you can see the scale on the left-hand side goes to $700,000, and AOB revenue is 2 point something million. So it really skewed this chart, so I took that out. But you can see that the revenue overall was up. You can see the anomaly with roads department, which is the first column to the left. That's the $200,000 that we mentioned that was coming to us from the city for this road project. It was postponed until this year, 2022. 18-hole operations revenue was up quite a bit, the 18-hole course. You can see the rec center did pretty well. Restaurant kind of underperformed a little bit. And you can sort of see the campground down on the far right there. Campground did really well in 21. Okay, let's go to the next one and take a look at,
And you know, in defense of the restaurant, a good portion of the year, this was closed, and I have to compliment Lauren for doing his takeout delivery routine. He kept the revenue up as higher than I would have thought even possible, so,
Yeah, and hiring a cook's been an issue.
yes.
Finding staff, so we're closed on Mondays,
yes.
and then I think they closed briefly on the weekends because they couldn't, on Sundays, because they couldn't manage the
Amount.
crowd.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of mitigating factors in that restaurant business today.
So this is really kind of a macro look at revenue and expenditures. I mean, revenue was, $600,000 over what was anticipated in 21. So that was a really strong year, and expenditures were down. So
Really makes you wonder about the revenue, how it's increased,
one of the main factors on the revenue was on the AOBs. We collected 3 or 4 times the amount of past due penalties.
Oh, really?
A lot of times when we don't collect and it's past due, and then people never do pay, but when they do pay, there is a penalty added onto that.
Okay.
So that exceeded what was budgeted. Let's go to the next one, Cheryl. So you can see right here, it was 24 point, this represents 24.7% above what was budgeted for the assessment of benefits revenue. So that was a pretty large increase.
Well, and when you combine the increased revenue with the fact that the department managers held down expenses as much as they did, I think that
Yes.
says a lot.
So this is as I look at all of this, 2022 is a good year for reinvestment, like our recreation center. Because we do have depreciation on all of our assets, throughout HICID. And as that happens, when the opportunity presents itself to have a little money to reinvest in these capital projects, this is a good opportunity for that.
I have a question on this.
Yes, sir.
Number one, we're under an enterprise accounting system. Okay? P&L wise, you can't. Enterprise is a cash type thing. When we buy a truck and we pay for it, and it's expensed at that point in time. You don't depreciate it.
Yeah, there's depreciation.
There's a depreciation.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna talk to you about that. Now, you can have a fund set aside, but it cannot affect the bottom line. Depreciation is not an expense that you can do because you expense it 100% at the time of the purchase. Now, the gurus of accounting may have changed the rules somewhere along the line. I don't know. But everything is a cash thing. Yeah, if you're a private enterprise, then you use depreciation because you pay taxes and you do your expenses. That's called the accrual system. Governmental accounting is enterprise accounting or cash, every which one you want to call it, and you don't appreciate things. Now, whether or not you But to get at the bottom line, you do not use depreciation as an expense. And throughout this entire statement, there is $1,303,000 in depreciation. Is that going against what I pay in my assessment?
No.
Well, it's on the bottom line.
The auditors, the auditing firm that we use requires us to keep a schedule of all fixed assets.
Yep.
And the associated depreciation on all of those assets. There's a number assigned per year that if you have an asset over here, it's worth $1 million,
Mhm.
and that asset is expected to last 30 years, then you can.
I fully understand depreciation on an accrual basis.
Okay, well, the auditors require us to maintain that depreciation
But it's not a
schedule.
bottom line expenditure on the P&L.
Correct.
How does it get out of there?
Well, the numbers that are represented here on these charts.
I should be asking the auditors this question.
Okay.
That sounds like good
Well,
to
they-
me. Because I know that on the balance sheet, there is a number that is, we have fixed assets, you know, the amount of what the value of the sewer system is and the land and the property and the buildings and all that sort of, the golf course. And then there's that total, and then there is an allowance for depreciation. So it's been depreciated about $1 million every year. But, you know.
Yeah. I understand that because I put up with the Public Service Commission on a privately owned water company that I ran.
Yeah.
And
I would encourage you to ask that question to the
auditors,
accounting gurus, the auditors.
I will definitely do
Because
that.
they operate within the law, I'm sure.
I'm sure they do too.
And then report back to all of us, Larry, and educate us.
I will check on that.
Very good.
All right, and the last slide, please. You have seen this before, but this just shows you, again, a snapshot of where we're at with our reserves. So the first column on the left-hand side, 1.5 million, is the balance of all of our CDs. There's 6 CDs. They total $1.5 million. The money market balance is 2.8 million. That's the second column. And then the column there on the far right is operations. I should say maintenance operations salaries are in there also. So 3.7 million. So the blue column are our reserves, and the blue column is 41% of the green column. So that's what reserves is. It tells you that we can operate for 41% of a year if we were drawing from reserves before we would run out of money. And the Code of Regulations that was adopted by a previous Board of Commissioners states that the reserves must stay between 35 and 45%. So I'd like to give you a look at that. And one more thing, Madam Chair, I'm going back 2 items ago, back to the policy. It's going to take us approximately a month to get all that keyed in so that the accruals are, so that will go into effect April 1st.
Any questions about the financials?
I have another question going back a couple, and seeing the mayor is here. Could you update the board and public? It's March 1st tomorrow, and I'm so excited to get the city and Sid working together, and you've been working with Dan and the State Highway Department, I guess. When will or approximately when, if it's March 1st tomorrow, will the Hawk and State Line $500,000 project be done?
I will defer to Mayor Keys.
Well, why don't I talk about that during the comment
Okay.
section?
Okay,
You can finish your financial review,
all right,
All right.
and then we'll get in, I can update you on the roads.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Any
Mayor.
questions about the charts that Danny's provided for us?
I like these charts.
I was gonna say, thank you for doing this, and, you know, pictures are so much easier to
I only
see.
have a bachelor's degree, and this helps.
This helps. And it certainly wasn't in accounting, was it?
No, no.
All right, any questions?
There was a question over here.
Commissioners first, or are you ready? Do I understand, looking at that we had a $1.5 million profit last year?
What Commissioner Stamps was mentioning about, when you look at the financials, it's showing depreciation as an expenditure.
Well, I know, I mean, but cash, I understand that. It's a requirement, it's a tax code requirement of some kind that you put that in there to show the true cost of operation, supposedly the true cost of operating the district. But you showed a.
Go back to the revenue and expenses slide.
Yes,
And there was a difference, you know, it was like a 1 point.
keep going back, Cheryl. Right here, right here. Yes, you are correct.
Your revenue's 4.7 and your expenses are 3.2.
Yes.
So you had a $1.5 million profit?
We
Well,
had approximately a $200,000 gain in 2021 because $1.3 million is depreciation.
I mean, real profit.
Yeah.
Okay, that 1.3 million is.
The depreciation is calculated in as
I understand
an
that,
expenditure.
but I'm talking about, you're on a cash basis and your real profit for the year was a $1.5 million.
Yes.
Because we got so much more revenue than we anticipated,
I
and we
understand.
controlled
Yes,
the costs
we
so
understand
well.
that.
Yeah.
But what I don't, that's the point that I was trying to make.
It's what we used to call it, when I worked at the Arsenal, it was a memo entry. We had to do that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because they wanted a comparison of what, a private enterprise could run the place for as opposed to what the government was doing.
Yeah.
And it was a memo or,
Adjusting entry.
right.
Yeah.
And it does not affect the bottom line, really. Even though that closes into retained earnings.
I had another question, Madam Chair, and it's what Commissioner Stamps brought up. The vehicle that we bought for Chief Lediker was, I think, $22,000. Don't correct me if I'm wrong on that. How long do we get to depreciate that new truck that he has for his use, the chief's truck? What does depreciation look like on it?
What is
We have not purchased a truck.
Oh, okay, I thought you had one.
longevity?
But
I mean,
it's
he
in the
had-
budget, it's in the budget to do.
Yes, sir.
But he was going to buy that with those funds that were turn back funds.
Or 833.
833.
Yes, okay. That's not coming out of my pocket or your pocket.
No.
Yeah, those are reserve funds.
Right.
Specifically for the fire
They
department.
come from the state.
So we don't depreciate that.
But we
Well,
can't,
it would become a fixed asset and it goes on the depreciation schedule, yes, sir.
And how
That's
many years?
probably, in my experience,
It's 10
a
years.
take-home vehicle like that in emergency services, whether it's police or fire, is probably a 5-year vehicle.
Okay.
10.
10?
Equipment
Is it-
reserve depreciation is of 10 years.
Really?
Well, when it's purchased as a new asset and it goes on the schedule, that's when you decide it's predicted
Okay.
Predicted.
life.
Okay.
I don't know, read your regulation, it's 10 years, it was.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions about financials? Thank you for preparing the charts.
Yes.
I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
it makes it so much easier for us to
Oh, I did have one more.
understand.
When are the bills going out and do the assessment statements or whatever you want to call it? And do you need help from the community to put those together at your office staff? We used to have 12, 14 people in here. We had a good time, and I think we bought pizza for them to lick and stuff those envelopes. Is that going to be done?
It is actually in the works now, and probably by tomorrow, Mayor, the boxes will be coming your way.
Okay,
Regina, during the ice storm, that's what she was working on.
Okay.
So she has most of those done.
If you need any help, this crew is, they have a good time and they chat around the tables here, and it gives a good chance for them to be in the building, but
And I
You
think
don't need
one reason that it was easier, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, is I think the community church donated a folder,
okay.
you
Yeah,
know, a folder
Yeah,
to
yeah.
put in the envelopes, and I
It-
think
it
that's
did.
made the process a lot simpler than it used to be.
yeah. Bruce knows.
you can come and help me, we have to stuff something in the same envelope.
Okay.
And he's part of the city, right?
Huh?
He's
That's
part of the
right.
city.
I'm looking for citizen volunteers,
When? Today?
Say,
whenever we get them.
say when, because we, you know.
Okay, thank you.
And I can get together some people. All right, let's move along to public comments. And Mayor, we'd love for you to tell us what you know about what's going on in the city.
Okay, you want me to stand up?
Give your name, rank, and serial number.
Dan Keys, representing the city as mayor. Yes, I don't have a date specific of when the project is gonna start. I'll give you the whole rundown. The original project was bid at $550,000 and, or estimated to be $550,000. So the state was gonna pay $300 and the city was gonna pay $250, and that's what we budgeted for. When they sent it out for actual bids, because petroleum costs are going up, asphalt costs are going up, everything is going up, the actual bid, low bid came in at $607,000, so we had to come up with a little extra money. The state agreed that if we would send them a check for $250,000, which we had, the original amount that we were committed for, then they would release the contractors for $550,000 worth of work.
Okay.
And then when they get the rest of the, $67,000 from us, then they would release they would do a change order and release the contractor for the rest of the job.
Dan, so you're saying that it's been approved?
Yes.
See, I
Oh, yeah,
did not realize it had been approved.
oh, yeah. I mean, we sent the $250,000, that's the biggest check I've ever signed.
Yeah, I bet.
$250,000. We sent that check either last week or the week before last. And so RDOT should be kicking off the contractor to get us in the schedule. Saturday, and a big thank you to Jack Deaton for ramrodding this for us. Saturday, Jack brought a check over to the house for $69,000 from the county. That is the city's half of the 3 mil county property tax for roads for 2021. We went all year 2021, kind of
That's the one you had to,
discussing with the county
I was gonna say,
whether or
that's
not
what you,
they owed us that money. At the very end of the year, they finally agreed with us that they owed us the money. And then, K. Phillips Brown passed away, and then Judge Barr retired, so the whole thing kind of got reset, to where the new people had to be re-informed as to what to do. Jack got everybody in the room together over in Berryville in one room, so they couldn't just, pass the buck, and came away from it with a check. So we have the money now to send in to complete the project, and so I'll be doing that this week.
great.
So
In
the
June.
next step is to get notified by the state, when the contractor has us in the schedule. And then, we have to coordinate with the road department and the water department, because we being Holiday Island, have to provide the risers for all the manhole covers and stuff like that. So we gotta make sure we have those sitting here and ready when the contractor rolls in. But from here on out, the state manages everything. We don't have to do a thing other than stand there and watch. And
Great.
so,
Traffic control they do also.
The main part is they do the inspection.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Of course, when the district does a road project, the engineering company takes a cut for managing the project. And in this particular case, the state manages the project, so we don't have to pay that 15% or whatever it is. So it's a good deal, and I was gonna talk to Danny and probably Kenny this week yet, since the weather's gonna be nice, to decide what the next project is gonna be and get another grant request in so that we won't get one every year. We'll probably, just looking at the history of all of the grants that have been awarded, it's every 3 to 4 years usually a city will get a grant, and they're always the maximum amount. Nobody asks for less than the maximum. And now the maximum is 300, so by the next time we get another grant, the city will have quite a bit of money in their account again. So we should be able to do another, $600,000 or $700,000 project in a couple of years. And right now I'm thinking, because the section of state line from the four-way stop down to Woodsdale
Yes.
is not included in the rest of the state line paving that we're gonna do this year. So I'd like to get that done. And Woodsdale here, it's not full of potholes or anything, but if you look at the surface of the asphalt itself, it is very much, eroding, and when it gets to that point, water gets under it and everything else. So something needs to be done with Woodsdale.
That lasted, that was done originally in 1998.
Yeah.
Really?
And then, probably the next one after that would be, there are some sections of Holiday Island Drive that are starting to, tunnel or whatever they call it from the heavy traffic and everything. So,
And it's a high
we're gonna
traffic
hit,
street.
we're gonna hit the main thoroughfares first, because, Holiday Island Drive and Woodsdale and State Line take 100% of the traffic in and out of Holiday Island. So those roads have to be kept in good shape. And it's not because they go past the golf course, it's because.
It's because they go past your house.
It's because I live on Holiday Island. It's because they take 100% of the traffic, and people need to understand that they are the primary traffic routes for Holiday Island. So that's where we stand on that.
Dan, could I ask Dan and Danny a question? Because we've contributed 200,000 or so for this great project, and next
No.
year.
No, we're
Yeah,
not.
we haven't given
Not anymore.
anything.
We have not, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, but
What you
we're-
budgeted for this year is for whatever projects you guys plan to do.
okay,
That's totally separate.
when will we know about that?
I was gonna ask that same question today.
Let's say that,
I'll yield the floor.
I want to say thank you and
Thank you.
congratulations. I know it's been an uphill battle, but my God, look at how it's paying off.
It's amazing, people don't just write checks, you gotta fight for every nickel.
And the amazing thing is you fought all year to get the county money, comes in right when you need it, and it's almost the same amount you needed, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
that,
we
That's
might,
great.
we might make the most.
Carroll
of it.
County does not
Keys
turn
Lane,
much money.
Keys
Yeah,
Lane.
I'm sure.
They don't have money.
I'm sure.
They love to take it and keep it.
Yeah, Danny, I was wondering, are we gonna do any projects since we might have some money for this year?
Yes, sir, I'm sure that we will. 200,000, give or take, has been, and I've looked at the history, that's been what the road department has budgeted every year for a long time. So that covers, repairs, whatever happens to come up during the year, as well as some select projects. And we have several that are at the top, near the top of the list
Yeah,
that need to be
Well,
Could
here's
we
a
get
question.
Kenny Dehart to come to our next meeting and kind
Absolutely.
of explain what his plans are for the next year, or for 2022? And, you know, if he's gonna do chip and seal projects or any paving, whatever.
I think it would just be interesting too, because he knows the layout of the whole community. What does he see as the priority list and what order it should be done? Because I only drive a few of these roads, you know, he knows all of them. So yeah, it would be
We've done
very
that.
interesting to know that.
Is there any chance, Dan and Danny, of this company that's going to work for the state and do this huge project, if they stayed another week and do 3 or 4 of our smaller projects?
I think that there would be a real opportunity to get a better price
Okay.
on whatever the district wants to do. If we could jump on it real quick, have ESI put together the bid package and send it to the same people that the state sends it to
Right.
for bids. And one way or another, kind of let this company know that they could piggyback that project on the city project.
Right.
And because, you know, I've thought for years that we are paying a premium for our road work here because we do it in such little chunks.
Yeah.
And nobody's interested really in doing it.
Yeah.
And now that Jimmy Jones is out of the picture, Hutchinson would probably be the
Is
only
it?
one that would even bid on our
That's right.
small little project.
Because
And
getting
the point you made before, you know, we put $200,000 in the budget for road resurfacing.
Yeah.
And we put the budget on the website, and then we put jobs out for bids. Well, guess where they all come in?
About that $65,000.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Ken?
Oh, damn, almost wiped out the,
Name.
That's the elephant in the room.
You're a council person, be careful.
that's right.
Ken Mills, 20 Rocky Top Circle. I hope I understand on this recreation center that I went to sit through your workshop last week, and we are talking about initially trying to see if we can utilize the old shower restroom area that's already on the slab and add on to that. Am I correct?
I believe that's the direction we're headed, yes, sir. Now,
I understand if it comes out that it's not practical, but that's the charge you're going to go to the architect with.
yes, sir. No,
Okay, that,
ultimately,
I
it'll be up to the
like
contractor.
the idea. I think it's very cost effective.
I agree.
Then you have the bathrooms on the front of the building.
Yeah, it's possible.
Now, you
Any
can
other
put-
public comment?
Put Janice's office in the bathroom.
All right, commissioner comments, please. Any
Madam Chair,
commissioner
I'd like
comments?
to make a suggestion for a workshop in March, and that is during the storm a week or two ago, I was really concerned about fire ambulance services to our residents. And I talked to one volunteer and an EMS person up on Fire Station 1, and then later I talked to Chief Lediker. And I'm wondering if Al Selleck is in our audience. He's a member of the West Ambulance District, are you not?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm wondering, and this would all be done in a workshop, but I talked to the firefighter there, and he said, well, we can't use the ambulance anymore. We cannot go out with an ambulance. And that was a shock to me. And so we go out with a fire truck. And so if John Doe has a heart attack today at 10:30, we're going to send a big, long fire truck out to John's house. And the EMS or the EMT person in that fire truck would go into the home. Hopefully there'd be 2 people, I understand. But I'd just like to know, what does the Western District with our tax money do to help Holiday Island? And are we short of EMS and EMT? Okay, these are all questions I would ask and not today. But I'm a little concerned since we get, I think it was 75% of the calls of ambulance calls and EMT, EMS are from here. not Eureka. But the Western District is in Eureka, and you and Connie Deaton are members. Are there 3 members?
It's 5.
Five members, okay. And the question would be, for that workshop, or you could answer now, are there any, we've been told that our equipment is, a lot of it needing to be replaced, and the auxiliary's done such a good job with that, but is there any money out of that $300,000 budget that is available for Holiday Island Fire?
Not specifically. Al Selleck, 22 Buckskin Lane. Okay, I'm a member of the Western Carroll County Ambulance District,
Okay.
which comprises 5 fire departments.
Okay.
There's 5 people on the commission and 1 from each fire district. We get in about approximately $300,000 a year. We have a contract with Eureka Springs to provide EMT staffed ambulances, and they take back 85% of the budget. It's kind of a reverse payment thing. Right? We take last year's figure, what we collected last year, and pay 85% of that to Eureka Springs.
Okay.
We are currently in the process of renewing the contract for another 5 years. The paperwork's in the mill. Eureka Springs provides us 2 ambulances at all times, and each one staffed with 2 EMTs. And what we have in Holiday Island primarily are EMRs, emergency responders.
Okay.
And then the other 15%, we use to buy supplies for the 5 fire districts. So there's not particularly a lot of money to be spent out. 15% of 300,000 is what, 40?
And it's only,
45,000?
we only get $300,000 from that little bit of tax money that we pay on,
You pay 2 mil tax.
and that's what
property
it
tax.
creates.
And each month, the county sends me back, well, I'm the treasurer. The county sends us a check and we deposit it into the account.
It's not
Years
long.
ago, and I haven't been able to find out how they got this through, but the ambulance that is in Holiday Island was paid for by the Western Carroll County Ambulance District. There's also another fire department that there was money accumulates each year. Another fire department got a rescue boat. We have a rescue boat too, and I'm not sure exactly how that was funded.
I think the
Chris
ladies
tells me they use each. Now, why they are not currently using the ambulance, I don't have anything for fact, so I would suggest you discuss that with the chief about why they're sending a fire truck out rather than the ambulance.
The chief has made numerous presentations to this board this past year. As he's fully explained this, that, whatever the governing body for fire departments in the state of Arkansas, they forbid them from running an ambulance unless they have 2 emergency, whatever persons on that ambulance. And it's a political thing.
If they have one,
Yeah.
I think the chief pretty much now has 1 person stationed at the firehouse, but he would have to wait until a second person got there for them to get on the ambulance, take the ambulance out. If you take a truck out with 1 person,
Yeah.
because even once the Holiday Island ambulance gets there, unless they have EMTs, they're gonna have to wait for the Eureka Springs ambulance to get there and stabilize the patient, to take him to the helicopter loading site, or our ambulance does not do transport.
Right.
They do first response at this time.
Because they're not EMTs.
Because, you need EMTs.
Well,
Now, and Chief has aspirations of someday taking over the contract, and, which involves a lot of things too. I mean, whether you split the district, they have a 15-minute time limit from Eureka Springs to get up here. And they also have a 15-minute, or it might be 18 for out there, to go to Mundale Road. But if you did the whole district out of Holiday Island, how long is it going to take to get to Mundale Road?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
You have really helped me understand, because
Yeah.
people ask me, why can't our fire department transport?
Yeah.
And it's because we don't have enough EMTs. Is that the right answer?
Correct.
Okay, and then you've also helped me understand, you don't have enough money to mess with. So we're not gonna get any money from you guys.
Yeah, we do set some back into it, like last year, they bought Lucas machines, which is you cannot do CPR for half hour.
Right.
You know, or even 20 minutes while you're waiting for a helicopter to land. Well, they have a machine that they put on a patient that does the CPR. Now, our department didn't partake in that purchasing because Chief said they already had one. But there are things like that that come up from time to time. But basically, we buy I know we just bought the oxygen for the district.
Okay, good,
Yep.
thank you very much.
And you could be thankful that you're on the western side of Kings River because the eastern Carroll County Ambulance District is collecting $2.5 million.
Okay, that's really,
I don't know how that works.
yeah.
Ken, and that red truck that they respond with,
Yeah.
it's not a fire truck, I guess. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a
It's got-
fully equipped
it has-
rescue vehicle.
it has the
It's
equipment
got,
that they need.
basically, it's got the same equipment in it that an ambulance would, less a stretcher.
Yeah.
Good.
Because we don't transport.
But Danny, and thank you very much, Al.
Al, thank
That
you
helps
so
me.
much, because
But
I truly did not understand the ambulance district, and I have a better understanding now.
That's okay, there's some days when the 5 of us commissioners, I don't want to respond. There's also another de facto group called the Alliance, which each of the fire departments, the chiefs, get together and discuss what they might need,
Okay,
and formulate up front. But they meet like before our meeting
okay,
to let us know what they need.
okay.
That they need like more safety vests from crews who are out on a thing, that they need, they got one department, I know last year got some electric flashing signs, especially at night out in the hills, battery operated signs.
Mhm.
We did just have a great pressure taken off us with the Quorum Court is buying a whole new radio system for Carroll County.
Saw that.
Now, Holiday Island bought one last year because they couldn't communicate when they're out in the field. They had a, bad brush fire. And they couldn't, because of the hills and valleys, they had trouble communicating. So they did go ahead and buy their system, but when the Carroll County system gets put in, they will be compatible into it.
Good.
And the district did buy the batteries, little batteries for these radios that they bought, which was only a couple $1,000 for 20 of them.
But Danny, I think,
Thanks,
thanks
Al.
again, Al. I think I still would like the chief here for a discussion about just in general, because I get questions about, how come, like Bob just said about the truck and not an ambulance. And I think the average John Doe who might have a heart attack wonders, what's going on up there? Why don't we have an ambulance? Well, it's just been described why. But when Chief was first here, and he was here about 2 hours, I think, and it was mainly about the 4896 program of getting people 24 hours and then 96 hours off. But there are other things that I would like to, like Al just explained very well, that would be of benefit to the commissioners, I think, and to hear on Zoom. And another thing is, I think volunteers are always hard to get, and all of us are getting older, so some are retiring and so forth. But it's such an important thing in a retirement area to have a really good fire department, and we do, but we need to keep it that way. And we're blessed to have the auxiliary. It gives thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah, my understanding, if I remember correctly, they're the ones that bought the boat that sits down there,
Yeah.
was the auxiliary.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Danny, if I could make one more point also,
Yes,
just
sir.
to clarify that the ambulance district buys ambulance equipment. We don't buy anything for the fire department.
Okay,
So when they come and ask for certain things, there's sometimes when we have to say no, and it's hard to separate that
Yeah.
because most of our, EMRs are also firefighters.
yeah.
But then you have some that are only firefighters, so.
Like the jaws of life would not be bought by the district, by the fire, ambulance district, because that's a firefighting equipment.
That's the
But you have to
investigation.
extract them.
Okay,
You have to
thank you.
extract when you get them on the ambulance.
Okay.
All right, any other commissioner comments?
Yes, I do. Why, on the fire department, right now, and I live in a very where I live, I can observe what happens because there's an ambulance service that goes by my house on a regular basis down to somewhere. And I don't know if it's somebody falling or whatever, but what happens whenever I hear the sirens go off, I'll look at the road and see what's gonna happen. And here comes this $500,000 fire truck trucking down Shields Drive to there. Why do we not just have a quick response vehicle? And first of all, in some of these streets, at the time he gets there, there's no room to put the ambulance down there to get him there because the truck's so big. It's a very, and another thing, if they go up to the Sunfest to get a bag of cookies, they take the big fire truck. Why do we do that?
That's what firemen do. Not only in this community, but in every community. And
That we need a quick response and something for them to do it with, because why are we jeopardizing a piece of equipment that $500,000 is probably cheap?
I don't know what that rescue response truck costs, but it basically, it goes back to what Ken was talking about.
That's a full-fledged pumper truck
They,
that I'm talking about.
well, they're not responding with a pumper truck, are they?
Yeah, they are.
I
Oh,
have
yeah,
seen
they
them,
are.
I have seen them at times.
I mean, it's a big red truck.
It's a
It
pumper
looks
truck.
like a pumper truck.
No, it's a pumper truck.
Is it?
It is a pumper.
Well,
I bought too many of them. It's a
Well,
pumper
they
truck.
take it to Sunfest, so it's available if they get a call while they're
Exactly,
standing in
yeah.
line.
There.
That's-
Yeah.
everywhere
That's-
they go, that's what they drive.
Yeah.
Or if they go to a medical call and they're way over here on the island somewhere, and there's just one of them, and they get a fire, they're in the truck to respond to the fire, instead of having to drive back and get in a truck and then go to the fire. So it's, it's really a staffing issue, and we all know that means money.
Yeah.
And there are no funds available to add staff
No,
to
there's
the
not.
fire department.
There's not.
So we're having to use an expensive truck because we only have one person full-time.
And we can't take the ambulance because we don't have two people to be on there.
Yeah, so
Now-
see, you're
now,
like in a
Larry,
catch-22.
yeah. To kind of, I guess, support what you're asking for, when this whole controversy came up and the chief was directed by the state that they not respond with an ambulance, then District Manager Lawrence Blood, I told Lawrence, I said, well, take the stretcher out of the doggone thing, and
You're not gonna transport it. You're not
That would be
transporting.
my comment.
Yeah.
It's an ambulance only because we call it an ambulance.
Exactly.
Put a different sticker on it that says
Yeah.
emergency response
Exactly, yeah.
vehicle.
But,
And then it's not an ambulance anymore.
Not to be used as an ambulance.
Exactly, yeah.
Not to be used as an
I thought that was a
ambulance.
great idea, but
Yeah.
But then you run into the problem of not being responsive for a fire if there's one again, same thing.
Yeah.
And also, the fire trucks run better if they're not just sitting there
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. So if you took your Suburban up to get your cookies, and the truck just sits there all day long, and,
Yeah.
pumps bind up and
Yeah.
such, that's not good either.
Yeah, my understanding is that they have a schedule that they have to start all these different motors so that they will work where they're supposed to. So,
And
good question,
They
good
take
comment.
them all out and exercise them. I mean, yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
I'm telling you, you do. Good question, good comment, Larry, thank you.
I'll tell you, I monitor the fire department's calls. And they've been scary busy lately,
Yeah.
scary busy. And what is even worse, sometimes they'll get an ambulance call, and 2 or 3 minutes later, they get another one.
Well, they had, was it last night or night before last, that they had a fire call?
Yeah, it was on Leatherwood, or not Leatherwood, Appaloosa.
Appaloosa?
Up at the top of Appaloosa, a structure fire. I never heard what they
Because
encountered up there,
the
but
fire
yeah.
truck went by, and then the fire chief went by, and then one, I would say, volunteer went by. Hope there wasn't just 3 of them.
Well, I saw Chief Leinecker the day after he'd gotten through fighting a big brush fire out of 23, and he looked pretty frazzled, you know, like it had been really serious. They called out Eureka, and they called out Eagle Rock also to help with it.
We fought one night, all night long, way back in the day, and they finally, the Forestry Commission finally got in touch with us and said, "You guys are putting out the fire, we're setting."
Well, see, the terminology
So
that I
they would
learned.
call that a controlled burn?
And we were putting it
But they
out.
weren't there to.
I think maybe they ought to be monitoring that, notifying.
You know, Corporal Engel, for those of you who don't know, is a member of our volunteer fire department. And I made note of the fact that there were pictures in the Holiday Island happenings, not this past week, but I think the week before, of some of those fires. And in 2 of those pictures, here's Corporal Engels in uniform.
Was he really? I didn't look that close.
Yeah, so he has a passion for our community and steps up and does at least his share. So-
Well, and the term that I learned that I didn't know before I got on this board is that we have a significant fire load here with all of the brush down in the valleys and everything else. And
Oh, yeah.
so, yeah, it's scary. All right, let's move ahead to, unless somebody else has another commissioner comment, let's move to agenda scheduling. Looking at my calendar, it looks like our next work session will be on March the 21st with our meeting on March the 28th. Am I correct in that? That's what I should.
Yes.
All right, so we will schedule that. Larry,
Yes, ma'am.
the next work session is March the 21st,
That's not a holiday.
not a
He's
holiday,
got it in his
and
calendar
March
right
the
there.
28th.
I got it down.
You realize we're gonna tease you about this for a while.
Well, that's all right.
He's got a Franklin organizer, right?
You see,
Oh,
I never take holidays.
that's what it is.
Honestly, I never have. I used to.
And like you said, he's got a Franklin organizer to get it all done.
Yeah, I love it.
I was, the best day in the world was when I got rid of my Franklin
Yeah.
organizer.
I
All
have-
right, I would be
I've only carried
glad.
this for
We have one other
30
agenda
some odd years.
scheduling. March 9th is the tour of the facilities.
True, yes.
And I would like to ask, and Danny's not here, but I have to leave by about 12 for a medical appointment that I couldn't change, but could we start at the marina?
That was our original.
That was our
agenda.
start.
Is that still it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you mentioned starting a little later because of, so the guys, directors could get going, but should we have 9
We
o'clock?
need-
No,
Well-
9 o'clock.
We'll try to do that, but
I think
I
it
was-
was rather than to start at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that Colin had some things going on, and I know he and Danny were talking about scheduling, so I don't,
He's at the end.
he's
The marina's at the end.
at the end. That's what I was
Oh.
thinking, that there were some changes because of whatever's going on down there. So,
Maybe I'll text you and find out where you are a little later.
yeah, well, and we'll see what we can work out.
What are we doing? The marina, the golf operations, the rec, we're not going to the rec center.
No,
No, go on the road.
The
road department.
Water sewer plant and fire.
yeah, the whole public works part down there, the golf maintenance and the marina,
Okay.
okay? And I don't know in what order, but I did know that there was some change because of some scheduling that Colin had.
We'll get an email on it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Right, Cheryl? We'll get an email, right?
I emailed all of those departments and given them tentative times to
Okay.
see if that worked within their schedules.
Okay.
So they have since responded, and so we'll get some.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, I would be, thank you for, we're through and it is 10:45, so thank you for staying on topic. I'd be glad to hear a motion for adjournment.
I would love to make it.
All
I'd
right.
like to adjourn.
I would love to say.
All right, Commissioner Brown has made a motion for adjournment. Commissioner Samples has second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, thank you. I think our work sessions are paying off.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yes.
Sullivan. Fire Commissioner.
And Al, really, thank you so much, because I truly didn't understand the Western District.
If there's any
Well, you all got my
That was
phone number, you can always call me if you have questions.
Well, I know, but I thought y'all had more money to play with than that. You don't have much money.
No.
Hey Janice, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Janice.
you, Janice.
Okay, just give me a heads up when you got somebody in line, and then I'll make sure I'm available.
All right, will do.
You know Mickey Minefield, right?
Yeah,
I know the name.
on your voice,
No,
it's
I saw
Kenneth.
it.
He used to be the chair of the
Kenneth,
planning
she's
commission.
been doing much
Okay.
better.
And now he helps me with the planning commission until we hire somebody.
Have a
And
good
he is
day,
a licensed
everyone.
doctor
All right,
that lives here.